Thank you for listening to the Golden State Media Concepts basketball podcast, where we discuss all of the news in the world of basketball, the NBA, college, high school, whatever you want to say, whatever basketball. It's being discussed right here at the GSMC basketball podcast. Thanks again for listening, guys. My name is Ben Brown, leading you into the weekend. It's a Friday. We are at the All-Star break in the NBA. So not too much to talk about for the next couple of days, just mainly some storylines. We're not going to have any games going on, with the exception of course, the All-Star game on Sunday. Pauline and I will recap the All-Star weekend in New Orleans on Monday. I'm really looking forward to it. Tonight we have the celebrity game. You have Jason Williams, White Chocolate, playing. I'm sure he'll do some elbow passes. He was always really, really pleasurable and a treat to watch during his time in the NBA with the Kings, with the Grizzlies, with the Heat. I mean, he was always really, really enjoying to watch because you never knew what he was going to do. And I'm sure tonight will be the same. You have the dunk contest, the skills contest, three-point shootout tomorrow. I am a little upset that my boy Joel Embiid will not be in the skills contest, but I'm sure the Sixers are advising their star rookie to take it easy and not do too much. I mean, he's not even playing on back-to-back nights, so I'd imagine they are the ones telling him to keep it easy. So he's not going to be in this skills contest, which I'm a little disappointed in. I would have loved to see him in there. But nevertheless, I'm still looking forward to the dunk contest. I believe Aaron Gordon of Orlando will put on a show. And then the All-Star game on Sunday. We'll talk a little bit about the game at the end because Steve Kerr is, I guess you can say, debating whether or not to do a certain thing. I don't want to tease too much, but we'll discuss it. We'll talk about it at the end of the show. So, really quickly, we'll just talk about some games from last night. We only had 2 on the schedule, and then we are in the All-Star break now, and really it's quite a long All-Star break. You have games ending last night, and then the next game on the NBA calendar is not until next Thursday. So for the guys who are not in any of the All-Star festivities, they have a week, maybe even 8 days in between games, a lot of time to rest, really relax their bodies, which is great as teams go into the final, I guess you can say like 25, not even 30 games left of the season, and then they, of course, have the playoffs to get ready for. So it'll be really interesting to see, but I guess it's good that they're getting some nice rest here, a week off. It sucks for us because we don't have any games to talk about for a week, and it makes it a little harder for show content. I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna be honest, but it's good for the players and everything. So let's get right into it. We had 2 games on the schedule last night. One of them kind of causing a lot of controversy. We'll talk about that at the end of the segment. So last night, the Washington Wizards picked up a 111-98 victory over the Indiana Pacers. The Wizards playing really, really good, and their last 10 games are 9-1. They're on a 4-game winning streak, and they go into the All-Star break 3rd in the Eastern Conference at 34-21. So last night, Otto Porter Jr., he leads the NBA in three-point percentage, and he helped his case last night, shooting 6 of 10 from behind the three-point line with 25 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 assists. John Wall had 20 points and 12 assists, and then Bradley Beal also chipped in with 19 points and 4 assists. When you look on the other side with the Indiana Pacers, just really not a great night for everyone. The team shot 49%, which is good, but they only shot 4 of 18 from 3, and that's really what hindered them. When you look on the Wizards side, they shot 15 of 29 from 3. So they made 15 3-pointers compared to 4 for Indiana. That's really the difference. Kind of in the NBA now. It's evolving. It's a wing league. It's a perimeter game. It's the defense and the 3 that makes a huge difference. And Washington made 11 more threes than the Pacers, and that's why they were able to win by 13. So Paul George had 17 points. He shot 6 of 19, though. Miles Turner, the young man from Texas, he continues. He's had a really, really good season, and he's had a good young career already. He had 17 points and 9 rebounds. I really thought that Indiana would be a lot better than what they have been so far this season. I thought that the trade to bring in Jeff Teague was a beautiful move coming from Atlanta in the offseason. And with Nate McMillan at the head coach, formerly of teams like the Sonics and the Blazers, I really thought they'd make more of an impact. They are 6th in the Eastern Conference at 29-28, but they're simply not playing well, and they've lost 6 games in a row. So if there's any team, with maybe the exception of the Brooklyn Nets, which are hopeless, there's any team that needs the All-Star break more than any other team to sort of get some rest and maybe get some confidence back in their side is the Indiana Pacers. They are on the second longest losing streak currently at 6. As I mentioned, the Brooklyn Nets are on a 14-game losing streak. That's the only longest streak in the NBA right now. So Indiana really limping into the All-Star break. But I guess it's coming at a good time because they're still in a decent situation. They are 6th in the Eastern Conference, although they are only 3 games out of not even being in the playoffs themselves. So they really need to make up some ground, and I'm sure a week off here to sort of regroup and get everyone back rested and healthy is the best thing that could be for the Indiana Pacers. So the other game of the night was the Celtics and Bulls. This is where all the storylines are coming from today. So the Bulls win 104-103. So, you're thinking it's a good game, 2 decent teams. The game comes down to the wire. That's exactly what happened. So the Celtics were up by 1. The Bulls do not have Dwayne Wade. And Rajon Rondo didn't even score in the game last night. He had 0 points. He was 0 of 5 from the floor. He had 8 assists and 7 boards. So you know who's going to take the last shot. It's going to be Jimmy Butler, of course, the starting forward in the Eastern Conference for the All-Star game. So Jimmy Butler is, of course, the guy with the ball in his hands at the end of the game. He's being defended by Marcus Smart, who is a pretty good perimeter defender, one of the better young perimeter defenders in the NBA. So Butler is attacking. He does basically a turnaround fadeaway jump shot to try and win the game. He misses the shot, so you'd think the Celtics would win 103-102. The Celtics are happy. They're celebrating a good win going into the All-Star break, right? Well, maybe not so much, because what they didn't realize was the NBA officials, I think it was Zach Zarbith, he was on the baseline. He called a foul, a really, really late foul, I might add, on Marcus Smart, which sent Jimmy Butler to the free throw line with 9/10 of a second left. Butler steps up to the line. He's clutch. He's got ice in his veins. Makes them both to give the Bulls the 1-point victory. But you have sort of a discussion here today whether it was a foul or not on Marcus Smart. When you look at the play, Butler elevates. Smart sticks his hand out. And honestly, you have to zoom in super, super close to see that he ever so grazes Jimmy Butler. Like, barely touches him. Like, it's almost like it would seem like you felt like there was maybe an ant or a bug on your elbow. That's like how much contact was literally made. Almost nothing. So do I have a problem with the foul? Well, I'm kind of split down the middle, but not so much. Was it a foul? Did he make contact? Yes. I guess you can say if you see a foul, you need to call a foul. But what happened in the game last night was not really that situation. So the official is watching the ball travel towards the hoop. Once he sees that Butler misses the shot, he calls the foul. So if you're going to call a foul, don't you need to call it right then and there? It's almost like he was saying, if he misses, then I'll call it, but if he makes it, I won't do anything because they're going to win anyway. I don't think that's the right mindset to have. Also, with a second left, are you going to call a foul on something that really, I don't want to say cheap, but something really, really debatable? I'm not going to do it. You saw on Christmas, Kevin Durant got fouled 50 times harder than Jimmy Butler got fouled last night, and there was no foul called, and I didn't have an issue with it then. So this was, to have it be called was disappointing to me, because I guess you can say you don't want to put yourself in that situation where you're only up by 1 at the end of the game, but you can kind of say the refs kind of gave the game to Chicago, gave them a chance, because technically it might have been a foul, but with 1 second left, I'm not calling a foul on that low of a foul grade. I'm not going to call a foul there with 1 second left. Credit to Butler. He made the 2 free throws, but I think Boston has a little bit of a gripe, because how late the foul was, he didn't call it until he realized Butler missed the shot. If you're going to call a foul, you need to call it right then and there. You don't need to wait to see if the shot goes in and they win anyway. It's almost like he was saying they're going to have a chance to win it no matter what. If he makes it, they win, of course. If he misses, then he's going to the free throw line for 2 free throws. So I don't think that was the best decision, but nevertheless, that was the case. So the Bulls do pick up the win, 104-103 over Boston. The Bulls now 28-29, 7th in the East. The Celtics 37-20, 2nd in the East. You look at this game and you're thinking to yourself, oh, it's only one game, not that big of a deal. It's only 1 out of 82. Yeah, that might be the case, but this could be a really, really big and important game for the Celtics. You look at them right now, they're 3 games back of Cleveland. If they would have won last night, they would have only been 2 games back, or I'm sorry, 2.5 games back of Cleveland. So they would have been a half a game closer to the Cavaliers. The Cavaliers are not going to have Kevin Love for another 5.5 weeks. They're not going to have J.R. Smith for another month. There's no guarantee that Cleveland's not going to falter a little bit and potentially lose that number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. To the Cavaliers, I don't think the number 1 seed in the East is that big of a deal. We saw what happened a couple years ago when the Atlanta Hawks had that magical dream season. They were the number 1 seed in the East. The Cavaliers were the number 2 seed, and they swept them in the Eastern Conference Finals. So I don't think they really care much about home court. They beat the Warriors in Game 7 in Oracle Arena last year. I don't think the Cavaliers care much about the number 1 seed. Without Kevin Love and J.R. Smith, there's no guarantee they're going to be playing as well as they have been. They're 8-2 in their last 10 and going to the break with a 3-game winning streak. The Celtics could really, really change things up if they had the number 1 seed. They're, of course, going to be playing for it. That crowd in Boston is ruthless and cutthroat. And at home this year, the Celtics are 20-8. On the road, they're 17-12. So they're a much better team at home than they are on the road, which is typical of most, I guess you can say, sports organizations. They're better at home in front of their own home court and home fans. The Celtics have also given fits for LeBron James in the past, whether it be on Cleveland or whether it be on Miami. Although the roster's a lot different, Garnett, Pearson, Allen, and Rondo aren't there. It's been a tough spot for LeBron to win in. So if the Celtics could get the number 1 seed, that'd be really big. And it is only 1 game out of 82, but it could come back to haunt them if it comes down to the wire. What if they have the exact same record as Cleveland and they lose out on the tiebreaker? Or what if they're a game back and they would have won a tiebreaker? It could come down to that situation, and you could look back to this game last night against Chicago. I hope that's not the case, but it could be a realistic possibility. So I think the Celtics have a legitimate gripe about what happened last night. But nevertheless, they are number 2 in the East. They're playing well. They're winners of 8 out of their last 10. And I think it's really between them, Washington, and Toronto to be the legit challengers for Cleveland. And I think the Cavs are still a favorite because I'm never going to count out LeBron James. But as far as who's going to meet them in the Eastern Conference Finals, I think is really wide open. And it's going to be a treat to watch as we come towards the playoff time. We'll take our first break on the show. After the break, we're going to talk about college basketball. We have a big weekend coming up as we are nearing the NCAA tournament. Gonzaga picked up a nice win last night to remain unbeaten. We'll talk about the score of that and more here at the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
So number 1 Gonzaga picked up a 96-61 victory over San Francisco last night. The top-ranked Bulldogs improved to 27-0. Nigel Williams-Goss, standout game, 30 points, 7 assists, and 6 rebounds. I really don't see any way Gonzaga does not go into the NCAA tournament unbeaten. I don't think anyone will beat them. The only chance they really have of losing, in my eyes, is to maybe St. Mary's in the conference tournament. Probably the title game. They've beaten St. Mary's twice already this season. One of the toughest things to do in sports is beat a team for 3 years, or I'm sorry, 3 times in the same year. It's absolutely tough to do. That's really the only shot I see of Gonzaga possibly losing a game before tournament time. In my eyes, they pretty much locked up a number 1 seed, and we'll have to see if this is going to be different than typical Gonzaga, because we see this all the time. They get really, really far, really high up in the rankings, a number 1, number 2 seed. Then they drop in the tournament Sweet 16 or the second round because they simply don't play the same opposition that some of these other teams in big conferences do. So I hope that's not the case. I hope they have a great season. Nigel Williams-Goss is a good player. He's a good leader, and he could really be the difference maker come tournament time. Some of the other scores from last night. Number 5, Arizona pick up a 78-59 victory over Washington State. Number 7, Oregon win their 41st straight game at home over Utah, 79-61. Number 11, Wisconsin, another bad loss. They lose to Michigan here, 64-58. Wisconsin, of course, lost last Sunday to Northwestern, and then they lose to Michigan here. And speaking of St. Mary's, who we talked about, they picked up an 81-48 victory over Loyola Marymount. It's Jock Landell for the Gales. He had 16 points, 11 rebounds, and a couple of assists. So when you look to this weekend in college basketball, of course, you always have a great weekend. We're still in conference play, and we're winding down here towards the end of conference play to get into the tournaments and, of course, the NCAA tournament. Number 25, Notre Dame will be on the road to take on NC State. Mark Gottfried did get fired, but he is going to end the season with NC State. He felt like he has a responsibility to be with the players and the organization and the school for the rest of the year and then obviously get fired. So he's still there for the rest of the season. Number 18, Cincinnati will host Tulsa. Number 2, Villanova will be on the road to take on Seton Hall. Big matchup here. The best matchup of the weekend is number 3, Kansas, going on the road to the Farrell Center in Waco to take on the number 4 ranked Baylor Bears. I have to see how Frank Mason, Josh Jackson and company do against Jonathan Motley and the Baylor Bears there. Number 12, Duke will be hosting Wake Forest. Number 8, Louisville will take on Virginia Tech. Number 15, Florida will battle on the road against Mississippi State. Number 9, West Virginia will take on Texas Tech. Number 7, Oregon will be looking for their 42nd straight home win as they take on Colorado. Number 17, Florida State will be on the road taking on unranked Pittsburgh. Gonzaga will be at home taking on UOP, which is Pacific. Number 16, Michigan State number 16, Purdue will take on Michigan State. Michigan State really struggling at 16-10 and 8-5 overall in conference play. Although they've been playing better of late, still not typical Michigan State team. Number 19, SMU is on the road taking on Houston. Number 13, Kentucky on the road taking on Georgia. Number 5, Arizona on the road taking on Washington. A lot of top teams on the road this weekend. Could potentially lead to some more upsets there. Number 10, North Carolina will host number 14, Virginia. That'll be a great game there. It's at 5:15 Pacific time, 8:15 Eastern time on ESPN. Number 21, South Carolina will be on the road taking on Vanderbilt. Number 6, UCLA will renew its rivalry with USC. Of course, USC winning the first matchup here in, I guess you could say, it's still LA, but I guess in Compton at USC. This one at the Poly Pavilion at the campus of UCLA. Number 22, St. Mary's is on the road taking on BYU on Saturday as well. And then you look forward to Sunday. You still have some great matchups here, some great top teams. Number 23, Maryland will be on the road taking on Wisconsin. We'll have to see how the Badgers can do with their loss yesterday to Michigan. Wisconsin really struggling without Bronson Koenig right now. Number 24, Butler will host DePaul. And number 20, Creighton will host the Georgetown Hoyas. So some news within college basketball. John Calipari, of course, always seems to be rumored to taking a new coaching job. Seems like he's always rumored to be going to the NBA, whether it be the Knicks, the Lakers, the Celtics for a little bit. And he is going to become a new coach. He's going to be coaching the U.S. Under-19 team at the Worlds. The tournament's going to be taking place between July 1st through July 9th in Cairo, Egypt. Great place to be there. He's going to be with a lot of great people that, maybe even guys he's coached. You know, some of these guys like Harry Giles, Josh Jackson, Jason Tatum. I mean, a lot of the great under-19 guys. And for me, this is just John Calipari's chance to even recruit a little more, because I'm sure there'll be some guys who are maybe 18, 17. I mean, he's going to be replacing Arizona coach Sean Miller, who led the U.S. to a 7-0 record and a gold medal at the 2015 Under-19 World Championships in Greece. So I think, obviously, he's a great coach. He's a great leader, a great young mentor for some of these guys who will eventually go to the NBA. But for me, this is a chance for him to just recruit a little more, because he's going to be playing with some of these guys who, of course, are 19, so they're in college still and everything. But some of these guys who maybe have connections to guys in high school, or some of the guys who are good enough to play on this team for the under-19s who are maybe 17, still undecided or in their senior year. I mean, it's really just another opportunity for him to really stand out and get some recruits. Speaking of recruiting, 5-star point guard Trae Young, he has committed to play for Oklahoma next season. He's the number 15 overall recruit in the nation, according to ESPN. He's staying home. He's from Norman. He's picking Oklahoma. He picked them over Kansas State and Kentucky. So he's a good guard, 6'2", about 180 pounds. He's averaging a whopping 43 points, 5 assists, and 5 rebounds his senior year in high school. And he's really just a game changer. He's really, really good. He's really quick, really fast, kind of a bigger guard, 6'2", and can really just get the ball in the bucket. I mean, he's averaging 43 points, and hopefully he can do some things for Oklahoma. Last year they had Buddy Hield, and they were a really good team, but this year really, really struggling. I have to see if he can return them to be just as good as we've seen some of these Sooners teams in the past. We'll take our second break of the show. After the break, we'll talk about a little news within basketball. Steve Kerr is thinking about something that I honestly hope happens at the All-Star Game on Sunday. And in the Charles Oakley and James Dolan feud seems to never end. What happened now? We'll update you on that here at the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, guys, one more segment before we end the show and lead you into NBA All-Star Weekend in New Orleans. We're going to talk a little bit about the NBA All-Star Game on Sunday. Of course, the West versus the East. Steve Kerr is coaching the team representing the Golden State Warriors. And they have 4 All-Stars, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green. And everyone's kind of asking him, what's he going to do with Russell Westbrook? And he said, honestly, I'm not sure. He's definitely considering playing Westbrook and Durant together. He already said he's going to come out and play the 4 Warriors together with one person. Who's that other person going to be? Is it going to be Russell Westbrook? He said the only thing that you do as a coach in the All-Star Game is parcel out the minutes. You don't draw up any plays. I didn't do any 2 years ago. So we've got to figure out the minutes, and I've thought about it. I'm not going to share with you here today what I've decided, but it's still up in the air, and he has considered playing Russell Westbrook with the Warriors. Would I love to see this? Yes, of course I would love to see this. I honestly just want to see Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook on the floor together. I think if Steve Kerr wants to add even more fuel to the fire, he'd put Russ with the 4 Warriors. I don't think he's going to do that. I honestly do not think he's going to do that because this is a game for the fans. It's for the players to get some rest, get ready for the second half of the season, and no one understands that more than Steve Kerr. Think about last year. The Warriors went for the all-time record, right? 73-9. All these players never took days off, never rested, and it really had a toll on their bodies at the end of the season. Steph Curry was playing through some injuries in his knee in the finals, and whether it made an effect on him or not, I'm sure it made a little bit, but you couldn't really tell some games. So he knows more than anybody that these players need the rest, and it's really important to get his guys some rest. So I don't think he's going to play a whole lot of guys from the Warriors in the All-Star Game a whole lot. He already said he's not going to play Steph that much, and Steph Curry really doesn't want to play that much, just a little bit to get out there, stretch his legs, maybe make a couple of threes, throw some alley-oops, and then that's it. So Steve Kerr knows that he needs to give his team some rest. So he's not going to play these guys that often, maybe for a handful of minutes together with another guy out there. I honestly really, really hope that it's Russell Westbrook. I think that'd be great. But he does not want to add any more fuel to the fire with the whole Warriors and Durant and Westbrook case. Steve Kerr's a smart guy. I don't think he's going to do that. I honestly don't think he plays Russell Westbrook with any of the Warriors player on the floor together at the same time. I'd love to see Westbrook and Durant on the floor together. I've talked about it on the show before. I think it'd be fantastic to see if they even pass the ball to each other, or if Westbrook played with the 4 Warriors, would they basically be playing 4-on-5 at one point and 1-on-5, depending on who had the ball? That'd be interesting to watch, but I don't think either of them's going to be the case. But the fact that Steve Kerr is even entertaining the option really gets me excited for Sunday, because I'm excited for really the whole weekend anyways, but the game is the one thing that always caps it off and the nightcap of the weekend, and I'd love to see Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant on the floor together again and see what happens. But like I said, guys, I really don't think it's going to happen. I think Kerr realizes the fact that he's not going to add any more fuel to this fire. He was there last Saturday and saw how Westbrook and Durant were jawing back and forth. Durant got into it with Andre Robertson. I really don't think that he's going to put them on the floor together. He doesn't want to create any controversy. It's a game for the fans. He really just solely purpose there is to get his team some rest, get him ready for the second half of the season, get him ready for another playoff push, and try to win an NBA championship again. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Of course, Pauline and I will talk about it on Monday, but I honestly don't see it happening. Before we end the show, let's talk about Charles Oakley and James Dolan yet again. So we all know what happened, and then all of a sudden, literally a day or two afterwards, Adam Silver steps in and basically says, like, guys, come on, we're adults here. Let's sit down, talk about this. And Oakley and Dolan, I wouldn't want to say that they maybe like ended their feud, but it's not as bad. Like, James Dolan lifted the permanent ban off Charles Oakley in the MSG, and everything's great, right? Well, not so much. So Charles Oakley compared James Dolan to Donald Sterling. Like, not saying he's a racist or anything, but like just as an owner standpoint, and that he would rather go to jail than get any help from the NBA and with James Dolan and everything now. Like, honestly, I'm getting tired of talking about this. Like, it's never going to happen. Everything is just a mess and a nightmare in New York. And Charles Oakley and James Dolan may have, I guess you say, ended their feud, but they're never going to be friends, and they're never going to have a personal relationship, and not even a business relationship. Like, it's completely dead in the water. He compared James Dolan to Donald Sterling. Donald Sterling is the worst owner we've ever seen in the NBA, and thank God that he is not an owner of the Clippers anymore, because he was absolutely terrible. He was a train wreck. For Oakley to step out and say that Dolan is just as bad as Donald Sterling and compares him to him, and that he'd rather go to jail than receive any help from the NBA with this whole incident and case, it really tells you what Oakley has to say about Dolan and really about the NBA as a whole, because he feels like this whole situation has been treated really poor. And I guess you can say that he's right in a little bit. He said, quote, "I told them I'd rather go to jail than tell them to do anything for me." That's how bad it is for me that he'd rather go to jail. And I mean, honestly, that he puts it right. He was in an interview with Sports Illustrated, and it just tells you how bad things are. And I really don't know where things go from here. It's just going to spiral even more downhill, which I honestly didn't think was the case when we talk about this practically every single day. But just every single day, every other day, we receive even more stuff to make this situation worse than it already is. And he has no interest of attending a game again with the Knicks and going back to MSG. Like, he's just completely fed up. And I'm with Charles Oakley here. I think he has a right to be fed up and a right to be disappointed. I realize Adam Silver tried to step in and stop and squash this beef before it got really, really heated, but there's no turning back now, and things simply cannot get better. They're just going to continue to get worse. So it's a sad reality, but it is what it is. That's going to be it for today, guys. My name is Ben Brown. I'd like to thank you again for listening here at the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. Pauline and I will be back in the studio on Monday after the weekend, talking a lot about the All-Star break. We'll maybe do some mid-season award updates, and then everything else in college basketball as well. Thanks, guys, for listening. Have a good day. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you on Monday.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.